Yeah, Kalpiti for me is a godsend. I call it heaven's playground. Uh, we have yes, amazing wind for kite surfing, but on in the winter season, we could go diving and see the blue whale in the morning, and in the evening we could see the elephant in Wilpattu National Park.
Hello, nerds, and welcome to Into the Wild and our brand new 2026 mini-series, Lost in Sri Lanka. Partnered with Jetwings Eco Holidays, this mini-series explores the island of Sri Lanka, looking at wildlife tourism, land use, human-wildlife conflict, and community. Any view, opinion, or expression you hear in this series belongs to the person who said it, and it doesn't necessarily match the view of Into the Wild or Jetwings Eco Holidays. Anyway, enough of my voice. Let's get Nadia into the studio and start with episode 1. Grab your binoculars. Hello, nerds. Welcome to Into the Wild's 2026 mini-series, Lost in Sri Lanka. It feels like it's been a long time and a lot of work before we've got to this point where we're introducing episode 1, but here we are. Myself and my lovely co-host, Nadia Sheikh, is joining me as we're about to talk about this wonderful island and everything I learned when I was there. Are you excited about this mini-series, Nadia?
You know, when you sit here in cold January and you're talking to your co-host about their beautiful, warm trip to one of the most beautiful countries in the world, you know, excitement is a word. No, honestly, look,
I'm not there now.
I am actually really interested in the topics that we're bringing up, and I'm very excited about getting into it with you. Thank
Nice
you.
save. Nice save. It was an incredible trip. It was myself, this 6'7" pale skinned ginger boy being lost in Sri Lanka. Was a wild adventure. I really enjoyed it, and I'm really excited to talk about the topics because actually the topics that's going to relate to this series, I think, buzz topics that you and I actually really enjoy talking about.
We talk about a lot. They've come up a lot, and listening. You know, I obviously wasn't in Sri Lanka, as you'll learn, but I have been listening to the interviews that Ryan did out there and heard Ryan's stories. So, you know, I can happily contribute.
But you've been.
I have actually been, and that will become relevant, I think, in our conversation topic today about wildlife tourism.
It really, really will. Before we get on to any kind of intro into Sri Lanka and today's episode topic on that, tell us about Sri Lanka. What did you enjoy about it when you went? Those many moons ago.
Oh, what didn't I enjoy many moons ago?
The food.
The food. I think we're recording at dinner time, so this doesn't help. And I've only got potato wedges in the oven.
Really?
Yeah, that's it. God, I think, you know, as somebody that I when I do travel, I do try and, it's not try. Like, I am, like, utterly interested in everything around me from people and folk stories and culture, community, natural history. But it was all such a beautifully intoxicating trip for all of the senses. And, you know, I do, you know, I feel like I'm utterly aware of, like, how colonial I sound when I say this. And obviously I don't want to, like, overly romanticize. But the reality is that it felt like being in a dream. It was magical. And, you know, the issues, you know, notwithstanding, there's quite clearly huge amounts of deprivation in some areas and development in areas that, you know, there shouldn't be. We also have that problem.
Yeah.
And problems that I will never be exposed to or aware of because I didn't manage to have those conversations. But from my perspective of somebody that was going purely in the pursuit of observing natural history, you know, from a natural history point of view, just utterly intoxicating.
Well, I second all of that. And Sri Lanka is a I mean, I was just all my friends will tell you when I came back that, and since, because I've been non-stop talking about it, it captured me when I was over there, and it really felt like, without being too like wanky about it, it really kind of like was a life-changing place to visit, I think. like from the environment you're in, which is changeable as you travel around this beautiful island, but also just the people and the different cultures you get to kind of see and be a part of. And I think a country like that, you really do become part of it as you're traveling it, because people are just so happy to show you everything. So I think you just kind of lean in, and I mean, you know what I'm like with food. I just was so happy.
Yeah, I know. So good, isn't it?
Okay, so before we get into hearing from other people that are not Ryan and Nadia, let's give you a quick, and I mean a very quick, recent history lesson on Sri Lanka, because there will be some references on certain events during the interviews across this miniseries, and it's important you lot know what the hell they mean. So Sri Lanka did not escape colonisation from Europe. In fact, it had quite a mix of events. The colonial history starts with the Portuguese in 1505, colonising until 1658, and then the Dutch took over from 1658 to 1796. And finally, the British doing what unfortunately my ancestors did very well from 1850 until 1948 rule, with European powers controlling the coastal areas before the British unified the entire island, introducing plantations, especially tea and infrastructure, but also exacerbating ethnic divisions and exploiting resources. Oh my God, what is wrong with my people? I'm so... In 1948, the island became independent and became a republic and adopted the name Sri Lanka in 1972. However, due to colonial policies and the creation of distinct identities, this laid the groundwork for an ethnic conflict, notably the Civil War, which went on from 1983 to 2009, 26 years of fighting and war within the country. And it's estimated at the end of that in 2009, a rate that from UN estimates, a range from 80,000 to 100,000 people died. Now, this is obviously an incredibly horrible and long conflict to take place, even more so as I sit here knowing my ancestors and my country pretty much helped this happen. But the reason I bring it up is because you will hear this reference during some of our conversations on the ground, and it truly has shaped Sri Lanka in being the island it is today, and that is an island of tourism. So, having just learnt that, this episode is going to be focusing on wildlife tourism, looking at the pros, the cons, how we feel about it. Is it just a case of exploring wildlife, or is it a case of exploiting wildlife a little bit? But Nadia, my first question to you is, and I guess this is a good place to start, but wildlife tourism as a whole, as an idea, how do you feel about that?
Well, I mean, this podcast series is case in point, because I chose not to go to Sri Lanka because I couldn't decide how I felt about it. And you and I had a long discussion about this opportunity to go, and because I couldn't make a decision, I decided not to make a decision. And I guess that also was making a decision, which was not to go.
Yeah.
And now I'm listening back going, oh God, sat here with a hot water bottle on my lap, shivering, thinking, oh, wouldn't that have been nice to have been in Sri Lanka with you? But I've still got PTSD after going to Namibia, really, travelling with you. But I said never again.
Never again. He's too
Never
hard.
again am I getting on a plane with him. He's got elbows and knees all in your space, let me
Everywhere.
tell you. I have benefited from it. I've travelled the world. Mostly, North America, so it's not as bad, really. But to see wildlife, and actually having listened to some of the interviews, which you're going to hear shortly, I feel a little bit vindicated in that, there is an understanding from people on the ground in Sri Lanka that there are different kinds of tourists, and those high value tourists, which I guess is what I fell into, because I wasn't on a trip where it was like I was just on a coach tour going around Sri Lanka. Yeah. It was actually money I spent was with local people in local communities, and very aware of my ecological impact, and consciously as much as possible traveled.
Yeah, for sure.
And put as much money as I could afford, really, back into the country. So, but that's just me trying to make myself feel good about myself, because I'm a British traveller. But Yeah, I think it's complex. I can see scenarios where it does benefit in the immediate because it's the lesser of evils. So if wildlife tourism can support a local economy in a community and also help wildlife, it means that the community will lean into that as opposed to potentially something more damaging happening in that area. So that it gives people a choice. Particularly, you can sit here and have a rose-tinted view of like, well, communities should just choose themselves and not be bought out by capitalism, whoever that is. But ultimately, people understandably want this idea of Western development or ways of living with all modern amenities. Everybody in the world has got a right to see that and also want that. And that is a reality of who people are today because of how people are exposed to things. So it's not really for me to tell people that they shouldn't and go, why can't you just live a simple life in the way that I would like everybody to live a simple life? And so if wildlife tourism isn't an option to make money, it might be to sell land to intensive agriculture, or it might be to, go into certain industries. So it can be a good option on the table. But also, exploitative in other ways. So it's complex.
I think that's it, and I think that last word is exactly what the caution is with something like wildlife tourism: is when does it become exploiting something, and when does it become kind of just enjoying something, or just a kind of earning a bit of a buck from something that exists around you. I think going on from what you said, like. I talk to a lot of people that go like, why can't people just live, back like they were before colonial times and not worry about, or not have to like earn off of wildlife or something? But I think because they've lived a model of capitalism. People know it exists. They have cities in their countries that are capitalist cities. You can't ask people to not want to grow, to build, even though, because they know it exists already. So it's like everyone wants a slice of that pie. And it's, I think.
I eat that pie every day.
Exactly. We all do, right? So it's like, I think we will hear from someone shortly on this episode where you'll hear a bit about how you can grow tourism, but also keep that low level, make sure it doesn't become the mass capitalist Western model. And I think when you've got that mindset at the heart of it, then that's when you can kind of see it having maybe more benefits than cons. But so let's hear some voices on the ground. So we're going to hear from three people. The first two being a man called Chandika and a man called Hettie. But I was going to introduce them, but I won't. I will let them introduce themselves.
I am Chandika Jayarante from Jetwing Eco Holidays, where we manage wildlife and nature-related tourism in, I would like to say, a responsible way. I also do a bit of wildlife research, did a bit of work on rusty spotted cats, which is the world's smallest cat, and currently looking into the golden jackal in Sri Lanka.
Okay, I'm Suchithra Hettie, and everybody knows me as Hettie in the trade. And I've been working as a senior naturalist for Jetwing Eco Holidays for over 20 years. And I started my career in 36 years ago as a general guide, but I gave up most of the things which I supposed to carry on because of nature and wildlife. So I do guiding for people who comes to Sri Lanka mainly for wildlife and nature related tours.
So I met with, actually travelled with Chandika and Hettie across my entire trip, and they're such lovely people to travel with. Hettie is such a knowledgeable man. Every bit of wildlife that went past, he knew exactly what it was. He knew where to look for it. It was such a pleasure to travel with them both. The next bit of conversations you're going to hear with myself, Chandika and Hettie were recorded in Wilpatu National Park, incredible national park, where I saw mugger crocodiles, we saw water buffalo, we saw elephants. It was beautiful. But one thing that was very clear to me at one point, just as we sat down for this interview, was the sheer amount of other people that were also enjoying this as well. And I mean, look, I'm not going to say too much because I think Chandika and Hettie say it themselves, but let's hear a little bit about what responsible tourism means to them.
Well, it is, as you said, it is a very broad word. It could be, interpreted in so many different ways. But I think for us, when we mean responsible, is like working with the people like you spoke to before, who are very much engaged in, responsible, giving back to the communities, doing conservation work. So at that, plus, like our guides, how they handle themselves on safaris, whether we are going into this mad rush, or do we not, or we stay away from it. Also promoting lesser known, areas, so we're not, adding more into that overcrowding and all that. Then also our vehicles, keeping them clean, serviced. So we're looking at our emissions and then trying to mitigate the emissions that's coming out of us. Even at office, we use a lot of solar power. So I think 40 to 60% of our office, is it's not powered by solar, but we are giving it back into the grid. So in those terms, and then also who we work with on the ground, with like a lot of local suppliers, so that the people in the area benefit. Whereas we're not hiring safari jeeps from like Colombo or somewhere else, and then coming into the Batoyala and giving back to those communities, and then using local guides. As you go on the tour, you'll see we use local guides in several places. Like in Kumana, we'll have some guy coming along with us. Then in Singharaja, we have the village boys who have learnt about the birds, and then they do the spotting for us. So I think that's what, in a travel sense, and as you would say, like a destination management company sense, that I would say is responsible. But then again, you can interpret it in several different ways. Yeah.
So the next thing I wanted to talk to Chandika and Hettie about was how wildlife tourism has and can change on an island in a nation like Sri Lanka. Given the fact that it's only really since 2015 that wildlife tourism has really started to kick off in Sri Lanka, it is obviously going to change rapidly. Hettie and Chandika have got a huge level of experience, like you just heard, in seeing what's actually happening on the ground. So this next conversation is discussing just what could happen if wildlife tourism is not well managed.
Yeah, it's been actually those days you hardly see a vehicle inside here, and the sightings were not the best. Just after the war, it's been finished. The sightings were not the best because the animals were not used to the vehicles.
Yeah.
And then they slowly got used to the vehicles, and the sightings are very good. Actually, this used to be the best national park for leopard sightings about 30 years back.
Okay.
And then because of the civil war going on in Sri Lanka for 30 odd years, the sightings went down a lot because there was things happening inside the park. And then in 2009, the war has been finished, and slowly the animals got used to the vehicles, and the tourism has also boomed up a lot. After 2009, people started investing on tourism and also wildlife tourism. One thing is now there is so many travel agents who are organizing tours to Sri Lanka. So on their general tours, they add Wilpattu for their itineraries as well. And the other good thing about wildlife, locals are traveling a lot.
So actually people from Sri Lanka are
Sri Lanka, yeah.
Right.
So they travel a lot, and they are very keen on seeing wildlife, wild animals. And there's the opportunities of buying cameras nowadays. It's if you have money, you can go to any type of camera. I mean, digital cameras are all over the world. They're way better, yeah. So therefore, the amount of people coming into the park has increased a lot, and since like 2 years or 3 years maybe, the amount of people have increased a lot, and among these visitors there will be foreign tourists and local tourists as well.
Do you think the increase in local tourists is because of the Civil War? Do you think that played a big part in it? for people not being able to travel?
Yeah, that was one, but that would have been, it would have been a small bubble at the beginning. Like
Yeah.
once things opened up, people were like, "Oh, I need to travel. I need to see
Yes,
these
yeah,
areas."
of course, yeah.
But that, that's a bubble kind of thing. It would have burst by now. But I don't, honestly thinking, I don't think in places like Wilpattu, it is the locals that are playing a major part into the overcrowding. Yala a little bit, yes, because it's a bit more accessible.
Yeah.
Whereas Wilpattu, most of the locals come and make use of the 6 or 8 park bungalows that are inside, and
Right.
then not a lot of people come from outside to the park. That's where we need to think what really is wildlife tourism. Do we need to have the masses coming into places like this, or do we leave these places for who is the wildlife tourist, the people who actually want to be here, want to see animals, who actually know what it is to be on safari?
Yeah.
Whereas you have people just coming here just because it's on their itinerary. They don't know how to behave, they don't know what to expect.
Yeah. It's just thrown into the overall package of Sri Lanka. Kind
Yes.
Of thing. Yeah.
Do we really need that?
Yeah.
Whereas, you could send those people to a safari park and they would be way more satisfied than, lugging around, driving around here in the heat and the
Because it is
dust.
an experience. This is the thing. Like any
It
safari,
is.
if you've been on one before, it's a full day, and it's, I love it. It's this kind of beautiful environment. There's always something to look at. But I can also see if someone's not immersed in nature and it is just part of the package, how you are just driving in quite, depending on which country you're in, hard terrain sometimes.
Yep.
In the elements. So I do understand that kind of what you're saying there. Going,
Yeah.
like, look, if you just want to see an animal, then maybe A, question whether this is something you should be doing anyway, because that's not the reason, and B, there's probably easier ways to do that.
Exactly. And the thing is, when you look at a national park, I know you say tourism is kind of the secondary objective for a national park, whereas conservation of the land and the species is the key element. So do you really want to disrupt that by putting in the masses there, or do we create a niche and make sure that this is a niche? Like, obviously in places like Africa, yes, you do get overcrowding.
Yeah.
But that is probably just the core national park, whereas all those private conservancies outside are very niche, very, very protected, very, very strict. I mean, India is very, very, very strict on their rules.
Yeah.
Your park has zones. You do a lottery, like a raffle system to get what zone you go into, and that's it. You can go into that zone. If you want to go into a different zone, there is a huge fee that you pay. You pay that fee and you go into the other
So
zone.
it's really managed.
It's really managed well. Whereas here, I think this. I hate to call it a civil war. It was a terrorist problem. Once the terrorist problem ended, I think it was just like, okay, right, we need our economy to boom.
Yes, yeah, you need that.
So we need the tourists to come in. We need large numbers to come in.
Yeah.
But now that's not the case, right? Sri Lanka was put on the map as a tourism destination. All good, all well. But can we handle the capacities that are coming in now? Because we're an island. We're not a big landmass where
Things can't move around.
Things can't
much
move
further.
around.
Yeah, so true.
So do we really need that, or do we need the people who are actually... I think there's two that we need. We need the high spenders coming in, and we also need the backpackers, the smaller. We don't need that middle ground of bus tourism. We don't need the bus tourists.
Yeah.
Because they just spend on their package. That's it. Nothing much. No extras. Nothing. And then they go off and they crowd places. And it kills the vibe for the people who are coming in, who are paying much more than these guys are paying.
Yeah.
And also the smaller guys, like the backpackers, the guys who are coming to really experience. And those smaller guys, whatever they spend goes straight directly into the village.
Yeah.
It's not going into a destination management company.
It's not a capitalist model, is it? It's right into the community.
It goes right into the
local
community.
economy,
It gives rise to homestays and local guides developing themselves in those areas. So that also is needed, plus the high end, where the middle ground is the one. Maybe places like Colombo. You can have Colombo for Colombo, maybe Kandy a little bit for these bus tourists, but I don't think wildlife tourism is not the masses. It's a very niche.
So it's really interesting hearing that, because I went to Yala.
Really?
And it was like, because I was I spent 2 weeks with one man as a guide, looking at all of the endemic species, bird species of Sri Lanka. Missed one off the list. So all of them bar one, just saying. Got to go back.
Wow, that is impressive.
Yeah. Including searching far and wide to see it's one of those ones where you're chasing it around, Sri Lankan magpie. And actually I went off into the bush to have a wee, and as I was mid-wee, one flew over and I was like, there it is.
What was the one you didn't see?
Starling. The Sri Lankan starling.
Wow, saw loads of them.
No, you didn't. No, you didn't. You didn't. Shut up. And when we got to the park, like first light in the morning, there was so many jeeps. I would say maybe like 30 or 40. And it's really wild. They just drive round like mad, honestly. And then it gets to midday and they're gone. And then it was just us. And we were in the park for the rest of the day, just hanging out, having lunch. They just come and do this thing and then go. And I did wonder, actually, didn't ask at the time, like, is that intentional, or is that just like they just need to box tick that they've gone to Yala and then they go?
We spoke about this a lot, actually. Myself, Chandika, and Hettie in the car as we were driving around, not just in the national park, but as we're driving from town to town. And as they mentioned there about the type of tourist you kind of ideally looking for in wildlife tourism, because we did the same experience as you in another national park called Kumana, where we spent the full 12 hours in the national park, and between the hours of probably 11 and 3 or 11 and 4, we were pretty much the only ones in there. Like, we never saw another jeep, maybe one, and that might be people that were staying on the bungalows that exist inside the national park. And there can be a few reasons to that. Obviously, it depends what season you go in. We were towards the end of the dry season, so during the middle of the day, it's very hot, especially around Kumana, and wildlife is sheltering. You're not really going to see much anyway. But for me, that's not the point of spending the whole time in the national park.
But that's not how we observe wildlife here in the UK. Like,
exactly.
Our most amazing wildlife experiences are just to be in a place for a prolonged period of time and feel it.
And that's the thing. We there was a wonderful moment, and I was reflecting on this the other day in Kumana National Park. It must have been about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. It was real midday. It was so hot. It was about 38 degrees, and we just pulled over under a tree. And we just all had a sleep.
Oh, God, I'd love to do that right now.
And it was just the sounds of the hornbills, or just as a insect flew past, or you knew there were things around you. We'd seen a leopard in that spot the day before when we were there in the evening, so we knew that could be around. And it was just for 40 minutes, but it was just the most relaxing, laying in the car just with your eyes closed. It was just wonderful, and I think that's as much as part of the experience of being out there in a national park than it is about seeing a herd of elephant, or whether it is seeing a leopard on a coppice of rocks, or anything like that. That kind of being in the environment for me, and I think for most people that want real wildlife tourism, that's the kind of thing we're looking for.
Yeah. And I think it's a really it's this interesting point about actually, wildlife tourism, or like observing nature, is a specific kind of person who really does want to go and do that, and then also behave in a certain way. But actually, these package holidays, like lumping it in, and also equally, like they lump in trips to various temples, and like I don't know how spiritually engaged people are as well, or like interested in, and I just
I felt bad about it, because sometimes when we're having this chat about the right kind of person to go, it sometimes gives me an ick, because I'm like, well, everyone has the right to access and experience nature. But then at the same time, I'm like, yeah, but you do need to know what you're looking for in order to do it responsibly.
I don't necessarily think it's accessing nature. I don't think is
true.
accessing nature. I think it's really one-dimensional. And I know that some people will probably have these, when people say like, birds of prey centres are really good because people get engaged with nature because they get a close contact. And I'm like, that's true. But is that really how we want to do it, though? Like,
do we need to be close to
it's
a
also
raptor?
But this is the argument people make for zoos. Yeah, but people wouldn't see these things otherwise. And I'm like, okay, but maybe we need a system where people are engaging with nature in a more meaningful, multi-dimensional way. Like, it's not wrong that people wouldn't go to a zoo and see a lion and think, oh my God, and then they have an interest in nature conservation for the rest of their life. Just because those positive stories happen doesn't mean that there's negatives as well.
Yeah,
Like,
no,
it
no,
is
it's a very good
complicated,
point.
and
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't, does an American tourist have a right to do a package deal and do like a whistle stop tour of Sri Lanka to absorb as much as possible? I don't know whether that is a right, actually.
I don't know. I'm laughing there because I just feel like you're saying, like, American people don't have the right. It's just American people.
I had to
So I was-
think, look, if I was going to use a non-problematic nation to use as an example, I'm going to go with America.
The other thing, the last interview we're going to hear on this episode about wildlife tourism is kind of not about wildlife tourism, but it kind of is. I don't know. It was a weird one. It was one of the first chats I had. This was in Colombo, even though we're talking about a different area. So on the west coast of Sri Lanka, there's a region called Kelpitia, a kind of coastal area, but quite a windy coast. It's not somewhere you would relax on the beach, not like the east or the southeast of the island. And it is famous for kite surfing. Nadia, do you know what kite surfing is? Could you figure it out?
I learned what kite surfing was approximately 2 weeks ago. And
Was it when you listened to the chat?
yes, yes, it was. And it looks dangerous and fast, and I don't want to do it.
No, I didn't want to do it as well, even though they were
Maybe
trying
I
to...
do.
I don't know. I feel like it would go out of control and I would end up 40 miles out at sea. Just get swept.
He died doing what he loved.
He died doing what he feared.
Let me just get good at surfing first, because I can
Yeah,
barely stand
before
up.
I kite surf. But the reason why I met with Dilsiri is because, I mean, for a start, he's an absolutely incredible human being.
Love him.
He's just so driven, so skilled, and so motivated into, I'm just going to put it simply as doing the right thing. Anything that Dilsiri kind of took into his hand to work on, he was always very conscious about doing it the ethical and...
He's completely decolonial approach to dealing with a problem in the reality of the world that we live in, and his mind was brilliant, and I really enjoyed listening to that.
Yeah, it's a really good chat, and the reason why I met him is he owns a kite surfing resort called Kite Surf in Lanka, and it is all built low level in amongst the trees and the kind of just as it gets sandy towards the mangroves and stuff. And interestingly, the mangrove forests had been destroyed or removed over years and for different reasons. And as part of Dilsiri saying, well, if my site's going to be here, he has planted 3,000 mangrove trees in the time that he's been there. And it is just, the before and after photos are absolutely mind-boggling, and we'll be sharing that on our social media, so keep an eye on that. But on top of that, he works heavily with the community. It's a fishing community, and there was some, he says in this interview, some troubling times, not super troubling, but like the communities were struggling. More and more people were leaving Kelpitia to go and work in Colombo and things. And Dilsiri said, we need to create something to keep people here, to keep the community thriving. So he, really just as a group working with the local people has built this kite surfing tourism model. And as a result has also increased the mangroves, increased the fish species, increased the crustaceans and increased the birds coming back. Now, so whilst this isn't directly related to wildlife tourism, it is directly related to wildlife.
It's a model of tourism. It's a model of tourism that demonstrates that it doesn't have to be entirely extractive from a community, and it can help a community, turn down a more destructive model that would destroy a community.
Exactly. So I'm not going to say too much more. I'm just going to introduce Dilsiri. This was a lovely chat with him at his Colombo home, telling us all about Kelpitia, the region, the history of kite surfing, and what it's done for the people, the environment, and the wildlife.
Yeah, my name is Dilsiri Welikala, and I operate a hotel, a kite surfing resort in the northwest coast of Kelpitia. It's a very rural area, a fishing village, that because of the sport of kite surfing has become extremely popular world over.
Nice, amazing. And before I pressed record today, we were just quickly talking about the kind of community aspect of what you do and your involvement with the community. And I think whatever we're talking about to do with the environment, with wildlife, with kind of tourism, anything we're looking at here, community in my brain is the heart of it. You know, it's got to work for that, and for them. So tell me a bit more about how the community are involved with kite surfing in Kapatia, and how and why is that also such an important thing for that
Yes.
area?
I think when I look at the community aspect, I did work in the corporate sector prior to this, and it was a factory, and they used to go to villages and operate in villages as against to bring the people to the cities. So that was a different model that they used. And after working there for about 10 years, when I set out to start my own business, I kind of followed this model where we are in the community, we're integrated in the community, and we need to be a blessing to this community as against to try to exploit. So from day one, I was operating in this little village. Not that it was, not that there were no hardships. We had the skirmishes, we had the problem. This is you understand, it's a fishing village. Guys with machetes chopping tuna, for instance.
Yeah.
But then through those difficult times, and I won't say like extremely difficult times, we just decided, let's sit down, let's talk for a nice win-win mechanism. So I would give credit also to one particular person, the head of the local fishing society, Sugat. He and I, we sat down and we said, we like to do tourism here, but we have a model where everyone should benefit. So we sat down together and came up with a plan. Outsource all your, the transport services, the airport transfers, the vehicle transports. For instance, we're going to the lagoon, your boat services. We also agreed to contribute monthly to a local fishing trust fund,
Amazing.
Fisherman's Trust Fund. And that's how it started. And then it just went on from there to helping the local schools, into education. And the buy-in was very strong from the community, employment opportunities as well. And also the environmental side, again, the same fishing committee have been instrumental in the replantation of the mangroves, which was depleted because of development. And so I also followed in the same line, working with the coastal conservation. And I didn't know at that time, but a lot of my tourists who came started to appreciate this. And this was not the trend, but people were talking about sustainability and all this stuff. And from a business case point of view, it really worked for me. And I think if I just go back a few years, the litmus test would be when in COVID, when we had no income because we had a bomb in the previous year and there was no tourism. I reached out, I did a fundraiser to the tourists who had visited my place, and within 2 weeks we were able to collect 26,000 euros just from our guests. And they said, we believe in the work you do, we believe in your business. And I think that's a real testament of how we can really benefit your business.
Well, you're capturing so many people with that, clearly, from that one one example to do that, because a lot of times in tourism, on any aspect, you always hear maybe critiques of some tourism say, like, well, if you cared about the area, why don't you just give the money and not go? But clearly what you've shown there is you can actually do both. You can actually make people fall in love with an area and the people and what the whole system is, to the point where if that was needed, they're willing to go, yeah, absolutely, because I want that to stay and be there if I want to come back. Really interested to know, because first of all, well done for being able to integrate with that kind of community. So I can imagine that is challenging, to go, I want to do this, and you're kind of saying, I want to shake the bottle a little bit and change things up, and no one likes change. No one does. Did you know it was going to be difficult going in, or were there any surprises with some, and these are my words I'm using, like backlash or any kind of like disagreements? Were you prepared for that, or did any of that take you by surprise?
Nothing by surprise, but it's a Sri Lankan culture, and you know from the stories of other people also that when you go into villages or when you go into communities, Sri Lankan people in general also, sometimes they can backstab you. And this was a reality. And so when you go into these areas, when you do your work also, you're a bit cautious. But I also believe that everyone is good, and you do what your heart tells, your calling to do good, and let the universe or God or whoever it is take control, and that's what we did. That's what I did. I really and also to integrate yourself into this village. I lived there for 10 years. Yes, I live now a bit in Colombo now. I'm enjoying Colombo again, but I actually lived on site, working with the communities, visiting them in their homes. And when you're really immersed in this village, you really understand the hardships that they go through and how sometimes unfair it is that we from Colombo with all the, just because of family, because of your education, you get a chance in life, whereas they don't get the same chance
Yeah.
in life. And so you really, your heart, you feel really sorry and compassionate, and to try as much as possible to help them.
That's quite important. I think what you said there about living in that community as well. I think that's something that misses quite a lot. Is a lot of people coming from the outside in, going, "No, we're going to do this," and that's where it gets really. People don't like it. But if you're willing to go, like, "Well, no, I'm here. Like, I'm willing to see what who the community is, who you are as people, what the needs are, if those needs change over the next few years as well, because it's one thing going in at one point and then not going back and seeing how it. Have you noticed the needs of the community change when you were there and even to now? Has it changed? Is there more?
Well, from a fishing village, from an absolute fishing village, now everyone's on the tourism bandwagon. So everybody wants to do tourism. Everyone wants to do kite surfing, for instance.
Yeah.
And so you see that definite change in aspirations. But because of my background and exposure, let's say, into tourism, there's so many opportunities that are there in terms of the tourism product. And, everybody wants, a lot of copycat businesses are emerging. But what I say is, guys, there's so many other opportunities, and sometimes just a bit of education. So I share my knowledge with them. I share about, even the traditional boats. This traditional boat that I'm sitting in, there's no tourism product related to these traditional fishing practices. Whereas
So there's an opportunity there.
there's lots of opportunities. There is, in nature, there is no birding. There's, it's like, so I think that's my gift, that I have experienced these things and I'm immersed in this with all this knowledge in this community, and I just like to share with nothing in expectation,
But it also sounds like you're keeping this is, and I'm just complimenting you now. But this is, it sounds like you're also saying, like, I want to keep stuff alive as well. Like you said, the fishing boat you're on now, which is stunning to look at, and it's like, you want to keep that alive in that community, and to be able to, if someone had the opportunity to build that as to get tourists to see that, or just to keep that side of a culture, is such an important thing for a community.
Unfortunately, when I work with different levels of organization that's into tourism, including government, their viewpoint of tourism is quite different. They see the Dubais, they see the Singapores, they see these development, and they think this is the aspiration. But I say, but you and I might know that, hey, no, the authentic experiences has much more value. And yes, you can package it nicer, but those experiences, those people, those cultures are much more, you can't copy these things. And this is very unique to our country. And this is what really sells can sell a location also. The government needs to understand it. Unfortunately, it's very difficult to try and convince them, hey, it's not about the numbers, it's about the quality, it's about the experiences. Something in Kalpita I'm also talking about, I might switch the subject a bit, is about gentrification, where we see in the south of Sri Lanka, we see on the east coast, a lot of big organizations, richer people, not really Sri Lankans even, are buying the lands. They have no education about how valuable their lands, and they're being pushed out. And so in Kalpita, I'm saying, guys, of course I bought my land some time ago, but guys, don't, you're sitting on a gold mine, and don't sell your land just to buy a tuk-tuk, for instance. Keep it, and and these are just some kind of education I'd like to give them.
Yeah, absolutely. It is important because, like you said, you've seen it happen. It's important to pass that on. And I also want to go back to because one conversation we've had is like trying to relate how, this being a wildlife and conservation podcast, and we're sat here talking about kite surfing and communities and that kind of thing. It's relating that to how does that relate to wildlife? But then you said earlier about the mangrove plantations. So how does that part play into all of this?
Yeah, I mean, the mangroves are just out of love of nature that I started planting it. Later on, did I realize there's a lot of strategic importance in terms of, when the tsunami happened, the lands that were protected by the mangroves were spared. But after planting these mangroves 10 years down the line, we've seen the fish life, the bird life, and our security just said that he spotted a fishing cat in our property, and this is all after the mangroves have been planted.
So in those 10 years, you've had those
we've
some
definitely
species
seen,
just come back.
Correct, definite change. Much more fish life in this little. It's not like a huge area that I planted.
No,
3,500, but we see definite change in the in the area,
Yeah.
in this particular area.
And that's amazing. And that was something just off your back. You thought, I'm going to put this back in
Yeah.
to the community.
When you talk about nature, I mean nature and wildlife also, I'm a scuba diver, and we have also big problems in Kalpitia in terms of illegal fishing practices, ghost nets, and also just simple pollution. Ocean plastics is
Yeah.
huge problem that we have. The nurdles from the ship that went off, sank in Kerala, the nurdles are now washed up into our shores as well.
wow.
Not in a big sense, but it's washed up
Enough.
even.
Yeah.
And I think, and I go back to the first topic that I just talked to you offline, was pollution. I think waste management, pollution is the biggest issue in Sri Lanka in terms of even the wildlife.
So you think overall that's one of the biggest?
Overall, we have
Yeah.
no waste management systems here. There's apparently a waste to energy plant, but it's not being utilized well.
Right.
But we have these mountains of garbage, including Colombo, including the East Coast. You would probably see it's going viral now. The elephants in Pothuwil are eating from the garbage with the monkeys, and it's excruciating death, right, for these animals. But if we don't, if you want more and more tourists to come, but we have no way to tackle these
infrastructure,
numbers, we are heading for a big disaster ecologically.
So how do you? I mean, that's huge. If that's one of the biggest challenges Sri Lanka faces, and obviously from a tourism perspective, and we now know just from talking to you, we have a community reliant on that. Actually, I'm going to ask this question. What just popped into my head: is kite surfing just a tourist activity, not solely for, but majority for, like kind of foreign tourists, or is it done by Sri Lankans as well?
So it's an affluent sport. It's an expensive sport to get
Right.
into. It's not like surfing.
Yeah.
So, for instance, we do have a very affluent market. But in Kalpitia, we have over 100 local kiters who learnt through schools like us.
Yes.
And who went up the ladder from just being assisting on the beach to being an assistant instructor, to having been an instructor,
Yeah.
getting the same salaries as foreign instructors, and then going on to have their own kite schools. But it's just like the surfing that's limited to the locals in the south or in the east coast.
Yeah,
Those
right.
communities are into that sport. But kite surfing in general is much more expensive to get into.
Right.
Saying that, it's just that because it's such an affluent sport, there's so much money coming in. That money I'm able to use for community development and all. And again, Sri Lanka pricing is a big issue. Also, we don't want too many budget travelers in that sense, because where can you save the money? So for me to do all what I do in terms of the environmental work, the community work, is that the money that I could save just because I'm charging a higher amount.
The high rate, yeah. So that then leads me on to the question I was going to ask: is if Sri Lanka's one of the biggest challenges it faces is waste management, and we know we've got communities that are reliant on tourism and are naturally and rightfully going to want growth on that as well. How do you tackle that? Because that's a big concern. Because, like you said, with the world we live in, a capitalist world that's spread further and further around the world, it is that kind of, the more people, there will inevitably be more waste and more purchasing and more
Correct.
plastic. How do you manage that?
It's a tough one. So I've done a lot of work with community, for instance, with the local schools. I was instrumental in forming a partnership between the schools in Kalpitia and Berlin. So we have student exchanges, kids
Oh,
from
cool.
Kalpitia who have never even traveled or never come to Colombo, let alone
Well, and then they go to Germany.
and they go to Germany
Wow.
and just exchange knowledge, and those students come to Sri Lanka. And it's not that either student is better, but it's just that we need to work together to find solutions to global problems. That's one aspect. Of course, in Kalpitia, I'm always cleaning. I'm seen sometimes
yeah.
raking the beach. Just by example, you
Yeah.
can be the owner of a business, but you can also, do your part to keep the
Lead
place
by
clean.
example, yeah.
But it is frustrating. So in government level, with tourist board, I've raised this many times. And the final straw was, I am also an artist, and I made a small art piece, a plastic monster from the waste I collected on our beach. And I made a short movie, a documentary movie, which is shown in Colombo. And the idea is to take it to local schools and film
Yeah.
festivals as well.
You do so much.
Yeah, I'm a
You
busy.
do, scuba diver, you run this business, you're an artist. It's amazing that you do all this.
But it's Sri Lanka. I mean, Sri Lanka is a blessed land, that the name itself says we are a blessed land. And so much to offer. I won't live anywhere else in the world.
Yeah.
We live on a paradise island. and actually the civil war that we had for 30 years kind of slowed progress a lot for us, but in a way kind of protected a lot of our wildlife reserves, for instance, because those are
Really?
no-go zones, right?
Right.
And then after post-war, we see a lot more development happening, and a lot of the wildlife zones, environmental zones are at risk as well,
Yeah.
because of this development. So we still have time, I would say, and we could learn from countries like Bali and these kind of countries
Yes,
that
yeah.
got really messed up in terms of the pollution, over tourism, for instance. We still have time to learn from this, but we have to act very fast if we want to change the trajectory of Sri Lanka.
So, again, before we press record, I was telling you about a conversation I had the other day about local versus global, which there's never a right answer. But you've said a couple of things here where you've got this exchange student program, which I think is incredible, just to have some children from totally different areas of the world go and teach each other or go and listen and learn new things. Do you think, and then you mentioned Bali then and other countries that have gone through similar trajectories with, probably getting some things wrong or letting some things come through the net. Do you think that despite the fact it's so important to have Sri Lanka and the communities working and having that autonomy, do you think it's looking at other nations and talking and listening to see where people have gone wrong elsewhere for other countries to take that on? So looking at it as a big global thing.
It is a global problem, for instance. It's the pollution problem is everywhere. It's just that, let's say, in countries like more developed countries like Germany, Switzerland, England, for instance, you all have a nice system to take care of your waste, so you don't actually see it everywhere. Actually, some of those countries would ship the waste to Sri Lanka, and in the countries, this is also there. So it's a global problem, and as we talk about climate change, we talk about, and I always say, there's no point. For instance, let's say Switzerland, it's no point you being pristine and beautiful when on the other side of the world these countries spewing out pollution, because we are living in just one planet. And I think we need to all work together, share our knowledge, share our resources to create a better world. I must say that my business, I'm a Sri Lankan, yes, but I also have a business partner who is French. We met during kite surfing over 20 years ago, and I think his knowledge of European tourism, my knowledge of being local in Sri Lanka, and the fact that we could both decide to work together, work on each other's strengths, was a success for our business as well. So in Sri Lanka also, it's not that only Sri Lankans, I would say we are all like mixed, and it's a global world now, right? And I think sometimes we have knowledge, but you all have knowledge on the other side, and I think we just need to work together to create something good.
Amazing. And I'm going to ask you one last question now. This might be a hard one to answer, I don't know, but Kalpitiya as a place, what does that mean to you?
Yeah, Kalpitiya for me is a godsend. I call it heaven's playground. We have, yes, amazing wind for kite surfing, but in the winter season, we could go diving and see the blue whale in the morning, and in the evening we could see the elephant in Wilpattu National Park. The people are extremely hospitable. It's also a very unique area in Sri Lanka where all the communities are living together, the Muslims, the Christians, the Buddhists. And I think it's rustic. It's not like anywhere you've seen the rest of Sri Lanka. It's rustic and it's quite unique in that sense. And I pray and I hope that we still have the opportunity to become Sri Lanka's first truly sustainable tourism destination, because we have wind power, for instance, for energy, and we could manage this entire area. So I think there's a lot of potential in this area, and I think it could be an example for the rest of the world if we get the certain things right.
I've got to say, the ideas you have, and that I'm going to say all these buzzwords like passion and kind of motivation with it. It's actually like, I don't know, it's oozing off of you. But it's a really good thing, because you don't often meet people that like yourself that are talking, but not just telling. You're coming up with these ideas, but saying like, look, we all need to do this. It's very inspiring to hear from it. And even as you're saying it, I'm going, yeah, that's actually like, I'm having these ideas now, and it's like it's really good. So it's been lovely to chat to you.
Well, thank you for having me on your podcast.
No worries. I mean, how could you not love that man?
So this is so everything that he describes, this is obviously he's not from that community, but he lived there many years. I like wholeheartedly just agree with that approach. You know, when we talk about wildlife tourism, if it all looked like, or tourism in general, if it all looked like that, I'm grand. The money goes directly into the community. There's young people learning how to kite surf and getting involved in sports. For young people is incredible for a sense of self-esteem, and incredible for a sense of connection to place. So it's amazing for like mind and body, and talking about building relationships with the community and encouraging them not to sell land, and I don't know, this if it all looked like this, then I want this.
We need more people like that in the world. We definitely do. And I'm sure there's loads of people like Dilsiri doing that similar thing, or maybe unaware that they could do something like this. And it's really, when you go to Kelpiti, what I really loved about driving along that road on the coast is it was all so one level, all one level houses. And it was just absolutely stunning and beautiful. And just, you kind of, as I drove through, I kind of, because I got there after my chat with Dilsiri, I kind of saw what he meant. I was like, yeah, you've smashed it. You've absolutely nailed it. So it was lovely to see, and just
You
absolutely.
didn't try your hand at kite surfing. It's interesting.
No, I didn't. No.
Yeah,
No.
Okay. Well, if anyone's listening that is a kite surfer, go to Dilsiri's.
Kelpiti.
Yeah, well, that's
Kite surfing Lanka.
Kite surfing Lanka, and then also, for those that don't know, like mangroves are like I think one of my favourite global habitats.
They're so beautiful.
And it's so incredible for biodiversity and such a rare ecosystem, and really important for fighting like rising sea levels and storm damage, and like let's just put mangroves back.
It's a really important point because it was only a few months ago that Sri Lanka had incredibly strong storms, and kite surfing Lanka was so well protected because of the mangroves that Dilsiri had planted, over the last 10 years. The only part that was damaged of his site was, I think it was one of the studios where they might do like community yoga there, kind of thing. But it was only one building that had the roof come down. Everything else was fine because of it being surrounded by the mangroves. So you're kind of like, it's case in point. Like, not that he wanted to prove his point that way, but it kind of was like, well, he's done this and it's completely protected his site.
Can I also, there was a mention of Bali and learning, Bali's one of these places I would hate to go to Bali. And this is me just being super judgy as somebody that has travelled and tries not to or doesn't really anymore. It's just like, it's a place where a lot of Western white people go for like spiritual
awakening,
which makes me feel gross. And I don't know.
I honestly, I hope that's your only point.
No, it made me happy that there was a reflection that actually, people in Sri Lanka were like, we don't want that.
We don't want it.
Like, we don't want that mass amount of, like, white hippies, I'm just going to say it, who don't want to do that kind of community spiritual work at home where they're from.
Yeah.
I understand if you want. I travelled to Sri Lanka to see Sri Lankan birds. It's something that I actually can't see here in the UK. And I do look at UK birds and I do spend time bird watching here. And I can imagine for kite surfers or surfers, for people that want to travel the world because in pursuit of their passion, I've got more time for than people that want to travel the world to consume spirituality that can absolutely get in the sea.
I'm glad you brought that up, but I also like the fact that at the real core of your point was those people that go to Bali.
I know. If you're one of those people,
you're not welcome
here.
Well, nerds, that is the end of our first episode, Into the Wild, Lost in Sri Lanka, where we looked across the board at wildlife tourism and heard
not jealous. Still not jealous.
heard some voices of people on the ground that have an incredible experience with seeing changes of wildlife tourism, knowing the potential issues, and with someone like Dilsiri absolutely knowing the solutions to keeping any type of tourism at low level for local people in the community and having wonderful results. everything you need to know, whether it's accounts of the people we spoke with, links to the businesses they run, and more information is in the write-up of this episode, so make sure you have a little scroll and a little read and click on some links. We'll be bringing out another episode next month where we journey further into Sri Lanka, looking at land use and looking at human-wildlife conflict as well. But for now, you know what to do. Follow us on social media, rate the show if you're able to on the app or platform you're listening on, and anything you can give to Into the Wild is always greatly appreciated. Coffee.com/Into the Wild pod. The link is in the right above this episode. But until we next speak to you, whether it's on Nature News or the next Lost in Sri Lanka, enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks for tuning in.
Bye.